This Fox Business Alert: Qualcomm's Steve Mollenkopf is retiring as CEO after 26 years with the company. Cristiano Amon has been named as his successor effective June 30th. Amon has served as president of the company since January 2018. Future is searching for direction this morning. This comes as investors are eyeing today's runoff elections in Georgia, where the balance of power in the Senate, really the direction of the country, is up for grabs. Joining me now, Kingsview Wealth Management Chief Investment Officer, Fox News contributor Scott Martin. Scott, if Democrats Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock both win, look out below. Your reaction?
Yes, depending on the asset, Dagan. I think look out up high if you're holding things like gold and Bitcoin, because that feeds into the uncertainty of the future. And it's uncertainty in the future, Dagan, with respect to taxes, with respect to regulation, and most certainly with respect to spend in D.C. And so as spending goes up, as more government control comes into the picture here, I think, say, risk-off assets, as they call them, depending on how you want to look at Bitcoin these days, become really the rage here as we go into 2021.
John Helsenrath, get in here.
Yeah, I want to actually throw out two questions for conversation. One relates to this Georgia runoff. You know, it seems to me there's a possibility we're not going to know who won. I mean, look what happened in the presidential election. It took weeks, it took days to count all the votes, weeks to recount them, and weeks more to litigate them. How does the market respond if we just don't know who won the election? Point number two, this is a totally different subject, but you know, I'm looking at how the dollar is behaving this year, and even as stocks have gone through the roof, we've seen the dollar consistently fall. Seems to me all the pieces are in place for that to continue to happen. And if you're an investor, how do you play a market where the dollar is weakening? Where do you put your money?
Yes, Scott, start with the last question in terms of the dollar weakening.
Yeah, well, two things, John, and you know this as well as I do. The good news about a weak dollar, despite the fact that it does erode some of our standard of living, is the fact that these days companies in the S&P 500 are so global. In fact, 50% plus of their revenues, that's 50%, are from overseas transactions. So as they repatriate, as they bring back that revenue to the U.S. stateside, they get the currency benefit of the conversion. So luckily, there's a little bit of an upside to the fact that the dollar is so weak. But in our work, as far as how we've been managing a lot of portfolios for our clients, we're factoring that currency devaluation in stuff like gold and things like Bitcoin as investors look for, say, other alternatives to things that are basically dollar denominated, like, say, U.S. bonds, for example.
Well, Liz, I'll let you take the first part of John's question really quickly about how long is this going to take to count these votes, and what would be the market reaction?
And it's an interesting question, particularly in light of what's going to go on tomorrow in Congress challenging the presidential election outcome. This really creates a scenario of total confusion, it seems to me. Scotty, what do you I mean, you didn't mention Bitcoin until just now. Is that a play on the confusion element, if you will?
Yeah, and I think, Liz, distrust of government, because people want to have things that the government can't touch, or at least at this point regulate, which they'll figure out how to do eventually. Maybe that's the bursting of the bubble, as it were. But yeah, you're right, Liz. I think the sad part about this confusion, I think, John, you're right. There's going to be a lot of it, and there's going to be contested results. We've been here before, and we've been here so recently that the markets may be okay through that transition period just because we've had to deal with it, and we are dealing with it still from November 3rd.
Scott, great to see you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Scott Martin and John and Liz. Coming up, far left pressure.